Hi, I'm Jon Tsourakis with the Digital Mastermind. You're listening to The Climb. This is where agency owners and leaders tune in to get growth tips and strategies for growing their businesses. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of The Climb. Before we get into everything, I'd like to give a shameless plug for the DMG 2020 Summit taking place in Dallas, Texas on September 21st, 22nd, and 23rd. You can get your tickets now by going to digitalmastermind.com and clicking on the registration link. So far, we have quite a few agencies that are joining. If you are interested, we would love to have you there. Please go ahead and register today. So to get in today's podcast, we have the CEO of SharpSpring, Rick Carlson. Just full disclosure, our agency has been a SharpSpring partner since it's either late 2013 or early 2014. I can't remember which. In any event, we've also been HubSpot partner. We've been partners with other marketing automation tools along the way. SharpSpring is the one that stuck. I think a lot of that has to do with the friendliness of them. They're also a Florida company. I'm a very proud Florida native. And the use of the system. We've had a lot of good successes with it. And if I haven't mentioned already, it's got a fantastic price point. So before we get into a lot of that, we're going to be talking about marketing automation, Dave and I here. And Dave, I know you're more on the technology side of things, where I would be, of course, more on the marketing side of things. So what has your experience been with marketing automation to date?
You know, that's an interesting question, because I want to say Infusionsoft was my first exposure. Would that
yeah, they changed their name because everybody was calling it Confusionsoft because it actually is. It was kind of difficult.
What are they called now?
I don't know. Obviously, I think it's like Keep or something like that.
It was extremely confusing. So I can completely understand where that name came from. And we had a client that wanted us to. The big disconnect for me is that there's the technology implementation of a marketing automation, and then there's the layer of marketing you have to put into it after you wire up the system. And that is, the crucial piece. And I think through my history, too many times, people have just thought you can just wire up a system and now you've got sales.
Yeah, no, there's so much work that goes into it. Right. And it is called Keep. I did look at it.
Keeps.
Yeah, spelled Keaap. Yeah. But with you, I ran into multiple, I don't want to just bash and trash them, but
right.
We never had any successes with that platform. I know others have, and I think that's great. But you're right. You take on, whether it's SharpSpring or any of these others, it's not a set it and forget it tool. If it were, they wouldn't be selling it. It would just be selling itself. There's a lot of implementation and strategy in making sure that you're going to put everything in the right order. You're going to make sure the messaging is in there. You're going to make sure it's triggering the right things. The workflows that has to make sense. You can't send one before the other. So
I think this is what we talk about on lots of episodes, is that this is just a tool. No matter what platform you select, it's just a tool, but it does not replace the fact that you still have to have a marketer to understand the market and market with this tool. I do believe that most people just think it's the set it and forget it, and they're just not educated on what it really means to actively use these tools to market.
And not just people. By those people, I think it's on the client side and as well as the agency side. They think that they can have this tool that they're going to use to get up to help them upsell their retainer, but they're not setting the right expectation based on all of the different actions that have to take place, especially as they roll out new updates. All these tools are also evolving along that way. So you have to stay up to date, and that's not even an easy thing to do. Those are questions. Are the most successful agencies setting up departments? Are they setting up, specific roles and times where people are just doing this? Are they just adopting it where it's a part of their, their infrastructure, where, they're like one like-minded organism?
Right. I mean, for us, we do have a dedicated role and actively push them to get certified and go through the training. And so that's what I think when you're picking a partner. I mean, when you're picking a platform, you're picking a partner. you know, partnership with a company, and you got to make sure that you work well with them. I mean, we use their, you know, our account manager there. Our team is in contact with them all the time, and it's great support. So I don't get a lot of exposure to what we do with it, but I see the results and the customers are happy. So that's really all that matters. I mean, honestly, the customer shouldn't really see the marketing automation platform too much, right? It should be,
unless they're in there using the CRM on the sales side.
Right.
Yeah. And I think it also depends on that structure. Yeah. Because there's clients that I don't care, right? As long as it gets done and we don't look bad, I'm happy. It's like, okay,
Right.
all right, we can move in that direction. There's others that are more of the technical mind. They want to get in there. They want to tinker things around. They want to try to customize things. But at the end of the day, I think it's all about how you're going to sell and implement that for your clients and continually stay engaged. It's going to depend on whether you're successful or not. Because if your other channels aren't driving in business, I don't care what platform or tool you're going to use to manage the business that comes in. If there's no business coming in, there's no point of selling them a tool.
Right. Yeah, 100%.
All right. Well, I think it's a good time we go ahead and let our guest on today. Rick, thank you so much for joining us.
Glad to be here. Appreciate it.
Our pleasure, man. Glad to have you. So before we get into everything, I'd like to give listeners an overview of your climb. This is essentially a story of how you got where you are today. And feel free to stop me if any of this is inaccurate. Originally from Miami, Florida, went to UF for your undergrad and MBA, so you're a double gator.
That's right.
Worked for some software companies shortly thereafter, Earthlink being one of them. And in those companies, primarily focused on security. Started SharpSpring in December of 2011, but really didn't launch it until late 2013. A year later, you're acquired by SMTP and became a publicly traded company. And you're currently up to 227 employees, according to LinkedIn, and live happily with your family in Gainesville, Florida.
LinkedIn is remarkably accurate. That's within 5 for sure. That's right. I think if I had to change anything about that description, the one thing that I would change up, we have Amazon showing up at my door, which means my dogs are going to go nuts here.
Oh, we screen well with pets too, so we just thought it was another fan.
Yeah, all right, there you go. So I spent all my entire career has been sales and marketing, just to be really clear about it. I ran some internet security companies and the U.S. operations for some of those companies that are larger, but I was always in sort of the sales and marketing. So the leap from what I was doing prior to SharpSpring wasn't as great as if I was actually in the internet security.
What was your first job?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, my very first job, I don't know if you meant to go back this far, but I was a bag boy at Publix. And I used to wake up in the middle of the night dreaming that I was falling asleep while packing somebody's bags. I guess I should have been working that early. I don't know. I was falling asleep and he's going to get upset with me because I fell asleep in their grocery bag.
I think that's a commitment to performance.
Yeah, I guess. Some sort of neurosis.
Were you fired? Have you been fired from a job? Was Publix,
Yeah, no. I was fired twice and twice in a row. And now this is a little bit later, not from that job at Publix, but, sort of after I got out of college, I went to work for a couple different companies, and you get out of college and you think you know everything, and in my case I did, and so or at least I was darn sure convinced of it, and I probably needed to be fired. I don't know. If I sort of get their point of view, but I really felt like I'm a type A personality. I like to sort of run my own ship, and I maybe wasn't as self-aware as I am today about that particular issue. So yeah, I got fired twice, and that sort of got me thinking, wait a minute, I'm going to do this for 40 years. How is this going to go well for me? And, even before that, I had an entrepreneurial mindset, but that and some other experiences just made it pretty clear that I needed to go and start something eventually. Yeah.
I know a lot of entrepreneurs that have been fired. I've been fired. I was fired in front of a group of like 30 people. So it was kind of a little bit of scar tissue there. But Dave, have you been fired?
So I have not had my contract renewed, which feels a lot like being fired. But
It's
not
like the
outright.
soft breakup. They just never call again, right?
Yeah. That's interesting. I got to think, I've never heard of somebody being fired, like, I mean, maybe in movies or something, in front of 30 people. It sounds like a place you needed to leave.
Is that my internet?
So, I think we lost you. Otherwise, he's got a very intense stare right now. He's
My
back.
time to shine. No, all right. You back?
Yep. Literally, it must have just completely lapsed. 1 second. Are we back now?
There you go.
All right. Sorry, Rick, you were saying, I missed that whole part. It's important that I hear it. Well,
No, I was just surprised you were fired in front of 30 people. That sounds like a job where you needed to be.
It was my dad. Yeah, I've actually talked about this before. Yeah, it was my dad. We had a tumultuous relationship. We get along now, but he wanted to set an example because I, at the time, knew exactly the way that things should have been, and I was right. I'm not gonna get into that. But apparently, I embarrassed him, so he wanted to set an example. And he did. It was as I was walking out of it, because he was a home builder. It was this luxury home that we built, and I'm walking down the stairs, and there's like a horseshoe of people, and as I'm walking down the stairs, he steps through and says, "Hey, hot shot," and I like turned, and I was like, "You talking to me?" He's like, "Yeah, you." He's like, "Get off my job site." He's like, "You're fucking fired." And I was like, "Oh," and literally the guys that were there were like shaking their heads, like just like, "I can't believe this is happening." And I'm sure productivity went through the roof after that. We didn't talk for 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah, that's rough. I'm sure he was like giving a message to everybody else, but
it worked, yeah, from what I hear. Yeah. But because of that, it changed my trajectory of everything. So I went and worked for another company that was a marketing firm. So I have to thank him for that. It actually put me on a much better career path.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think that's how I would look at my two. It doesn't make it any less traumatic, but hey, we got to move on. What kind of webinar is this? Let's talk about anybody you know really sick. Can we
No, actually, I know 3 people that have gotten it. They've all recovered though. So
yeah, there you go. There. That's right.
All right, so everybody has tools to support them on their climb. We want to know what's in your backpack. So this essentially gives me a profile of like who you are from a tech standpoint on the most basic level. Are you a PC or Mac guy?
It's funny, I spent so much time in internet security, which was all PC, but I've been a Mac guy. In fact, our whole company standardized on Macs. All those employees have them. So I've been a Mac guy for a long time.
Okay. Are you Office 365, Gmail, something else?
Gmail for sure. And my whole life is Excel and Gmail and Word. So it's sort of a mix. I've not gotten off of, I'm not using Google's Sheets or anything like that. I got to have actual Excel and I got to have Word still, but I'm slowly being pulled into Google Docs, I suppose, but I definitely Gmail.
Got it. Note-taking, Evernote, Google Docs, OneNote, paper.
I use my inbox for everything. And I'm one of these people that I think with 100%, anybody who emails me is sort of shocked how quickly I get back to them, because I've got to have that, I have to have that white space between the last email and the edit where you read the email. Like I've got to see the end of my emails. So I'm constantly.
You have like a zero inbox?
I have a plus or minus 25 inbox. Like wow. If I can't see the bottom of that thing, I got a real issue. Now I got a huge folder structure, but I'll read something and decide, do I need to respond to this? If so, I'm doing it, or if I, feel like I need to save it for later for a meeting, I'll drag it into the appropriate folder. But yeah, I work through that inbox every single day. And so my notes and things, I send them because, I'm taking notes for something I need to do, generally speaking. So I try to do everything with my inbox. Our whole company's using Slack, and I get in there, but I begrudgingly, I want this one. My inbox, the emails, they stay there until I've dealt with them. A Slack message sort of disappears into the feed. And yeah, I'm sort of old school that way.
Yeah. I
I'm
can't
not
do the
proud of
zero
it.
inbox
That's
thing.
who I
I'm
am.
unlimited. I just, yeah, it's priorities, right? So it's priority. I'll get to it. If not, then it'll kind of just hang out there for a while. I think, Dave, you're a zero inbox guy too, though.
100%. It's the only way I can work. I mean, letting tasks build up just gives me anxiety. Like
Stresses me out too. Yeah.
Talking to people that manage their email like that, like I'm just looking at them like, how do you get through the day? And that's why they miss things, John.
Yeah, it feels real good to be, like, hey, this is manageable. This is where I need to be. I've dealt with everything. So, yeah, we have that. Now? How is your house super clean?
My house?
Yeah, I mean, well, specifically, Dave, just wondering because I have a certain order of things. Like I don't have a cluttered house. The same thing as my inbox. It's just I got a messiness or whatever. We're getting really much deeper into my psyche than I ever wanted to be. Not sure.
No, that's what this is all about, man. I like it. So you're a neat freak, type A personality, having a zero inbox.
That's right. That's it.
All right. Yeah, I got cleaning people. My view on the inbox is it's just a bucket, and then there's priorities in there, and there's emails. I get so many junk emails. It is just horrible.
Yeah.
Now let's jump right into it. Why did you start SharpSpring in an already crowded space?
Yeah, so we were literally 10 years late to the party. The original companies, there are 5 of them that sort of all started around the same time, and I don't know who was first, but Eloqua, Pardot, HubSpot, Marketo, and Acton. There were a few others that have since gone by the wayside, but those were sort of the original 5, and they started in the early 2000s. I mentioned that I'd run some the sales and marketing functions for some larger international internet security companies, and we were using Marketo. And as a marketer, I was just blown away by what marketing automation, back then it was called email automation, and what email automation was allowing people to do, which is still true today, having essentially one-on-one communications. There's a paradox, right? People think automation is not personal. Well, in fact, it is the thing that allows you to personalize. When you've got, at scale, if you've got 20,000 people coming to your website, I can present exactly the same information to all 20,000 people, whether they're at whether they're ready to buy or they're just learning about your product or they're comparing you with another platform or whatever. With automation, I can see all that stuff and write personalized content and essentially have a one-on-one communication by seeing what the person's interested in and then responding in kind. So I'm getting off of your question, but I saw the power of this technology. But back then, I think we were paying, I'm just guessing, $150,000, $200,000 for the technology because it was only up at the enterprise. Mm-hmm. And I looked at it and I said, nearly every business in the world needs something like this, right? This is a problem of, with websites and with businesses and being able to, whether you're selling, $200 widgets through a shopping cart or you're selling $20,000, boats and, whatever, you're going to be able to use marketing automation. So we started SharpSpring to bring marketing automation down to the SMB. And I fell in love with the technologies, no question about it. I thought it was the coolest thing in the world. And then from there, There was also, I mentioned it was email marketing or email automation, and there were so many things that it didn't do. Now, since then, the suites have really built around the core email tracking and automation. And today, SharpSpring is more of a vision of what I thought it should be back then. And I can go into that, but I feel like I'm giving you a 20-minute answer to the question. So,
No, it's good. And we'll probably touch on that in some of these other places. I appreciate you giving me a place to stop. So with that, you mentioned some of the competitors, right? So I look at one of your biggest competitors, and one of the biggest competitors in that game is HubSpot, which is like a Goliath now, right?
Yeah,
They essentially coined the term inbound marketing itself, which I think is something brilliant. Do you feel it's better to have a player like that in the market, or would you rather be in that position?
both.
Yeah, which is a fair answer.
It's been great. Look, I've been quick to say that if not for Marketo and Eloqua and HubSpot spending, those guys got so much, VC funding. They spent hundreds of millions of dollars. I think HubSpot at this point spends, $150 million or more easily on sales and marketing. Wow. And so they helped. They were not the only one, by the way. Marketo was sort of there and rose before HubSpot and Eloqua and some others. But they helped to educate the market on the power of marketing automation, and so that meant that we could focus on building what we think is a better solution and a more cost-effective solution, and without having that extra burden of having to break into a brand new market and tell people about the benefits. And so I think that's been super helpful for us, and we're appreciative of all of those companies and what they've done and what they continue to do, frankly. Second part of your question, I mean, I think those guys we're doing a great job, and we're growing radically, and we've moved into the number 2 position now, behind HubSpot right now with our digital agency market, which is where we focus. And so, but yeah, no, they're killing it as well. And, it's got to be fun to be in the number 1 position as well.
Yeah, no, that's why I wonder. It's the first person through the door is always the bloodiest, right? Like Steve Jobs didn't invent like the portable music device or any of these other things. So somebody just spending all of that time, I think it's a great position to be in. You can sit back, learn from their mistakes, and develop a better tool.
Yeah, they're different positions and different strategies. So when we launched our product, we launched officially in January of 2014.
Okay.
So we're sort of in our 6th year here. And when we launched, we were in the enviable position of having 0 revenues to protect. And so, and to be honest with you, back then our product was not very strong. It was our first product. I don't think we had email. I mean, I think we launched with analytics and forms and some things, and our first job was to try to prove to marketers what they were doing, whether it was working or not. And so, we ended up pricing our product at like 1/10 the cost of everybody else. And so we kept that price, and we built our whole business around that price point. And that's been the advantage that we've taken advantage of as the second mover. As the first mover, those guys have enjoyed, much higher prices. They've gotten, some bloody noses, I'm sure, but they're reaping the rewards for that as well, because they're pretty big. And I think those guys are trying to go after, the sales forces of the world. And so I think if we're talking about more general business advice, you just have to recognize your position in your market, and recognize that there are plays, there are advantages no matter where you are. You've just got to recognize them and play the right, make the right plays, take advantage of the right things.
How did you recognize them? Like, how did you recognize to go after agencies?
Well, first off, it took us 2 years to build our product. And so I incorporated the business in like late 2011. And we really spent 2012 and 13 building our MVP and raising some dollars from angel investors. And during that 2 years, and so when I started the business, there appeared to be an opening where, Eloqua and Marketo and those guys were up at the enterprise and maybe coming down into the mid-market. And HubSpot seemed to be sort of in the mid-market. And by the way, just to complicate issues, over time, they've come down to SMB and gone up to mid-market, and they're sort of bouncing back and forth. But during those 2 years where we were developing, we saw HubSpot coming down into before we even could get our product out the door, we saw competition showing up in the SMB space. And again, there were some other companies that have gone by the wayside since. Back then, Pardot was more SMB, and before they got acquired by Salesforce. And so we saw these companies jumping into the space where we were thinking our business model was going to be, but we realized we thought that these digital marketing agencies were critical to actually implementing correctly the functionality that we offer. We are a tool, and in some sense, I don't like calling us a Swiss Army knife, because everything that we do works together. And so just the idea of a multi-tool or something doesn't quite capture what we're doing. But it's a complex tool that, to get the most out of it, you sort of ought to use all of the features and know what you're doing. And we thought marketing agencies were the perfect audience for us. They'd understand what to do with the tools and deliver the results. And we also saw that everybody was really going after the end user directly. And so that it's always, I think people talk about business wrong a lot of times, and they, how do I compete with this person? Well, it's a much better objective to try to figure out how not to compete with anybody, right? And so we went where we saw no others, and then we built up a strategic advantage in that space. And so that's how we arrived at the agency market.
And you change your position essentially to envelop that conversation with an agency, what they were looking for.
Yeah, no, that's right. So as today, nearly 90% of our revenues come from our agency partners. We end up with some end users sort of accidentally. We don't spend $1 to go after them purposefully. And when we decided that agencies were going to be the way that we went to market, we went all in. And so we built a single sign-on platform where the agencies can manage all their clients in one spot. We've built shareable workflow templates. We're building more of those things as time goes on, and email templates and forms and things. We built cloud dashboarding where our agencies can, in an agency's office, you can have a dashboard with all the stats from your clients. So you can keep real-time tabs on the leads and sales and things that they're generating with our new custom reporting with cloud dashboarding. We built an agency pricing model that is, fair. Well, it's totally unique. It's unheard of compared to, it doesn't compare with anything anybody else is doing. And so we really went all in on the strategy. And I think that's required. I think people will say, hey, this is my market, this is what I'm doing. But, going all in and turning that into something more than a sentence or two or a statement, I think is critical. And so we've, wherever possible, worked hard to make that a reality for our business and our product and our agency partners.
So where you just mentioned some of the features, where are agencies failing in using your offering? Like, what are they not doing that they could be doing?
Where are they failing?
Like you mentioned that dashboard, like, unbiased, like we're a SharpSpring partner in my agency. Like I didn't know anything about that dashboard,
Yeah, so that's one of the things, but I wouldn't put this in the category of agencies failing. How about a collective failure? Because that's my job.
Where is the failing
right?
happening, right? Yeah, it's not necessarily an accountability responsibility side of things.
Yeah, well, I think that's my job. I saw your eyes sort of perk up there. Wait, you've got this cloud. I didn't know about. I could, I could tell. And obviously, you're a partner. We release so many great features that an agency will sign up with us in August of 2018, and we had features then, and we put people through onboarding, and that's sort of what SharpSpring is to them, because that's when they went through onboarding and they got used to the things that they know how that we had then and how we do it. And of course, when we launch a new feature, we send out email communications. We tell people about it. There's in-app messages and things, but they become, those are sort of transient. You tell somebody about it now, and of course the person that we signed up the next day didn't get those emails, and maybe those long tail features aren't covered. So I think that the entire industry, and I'm talking about, I think an honest person from any of my competitors would say exactly the same thing. The entire industry suffers from underutilization of the platforms. They're so powerful. They really do work very, very well at maximizing every opportunity and converting as many leads as possible into sales and showing you what works and what doesn't. I mean, this is one of these products where it works as advertised, but it takes investment, and it takes, constantly like understanding what's on offer from the platforms and how to implement them, those features appropriately. So how
are those best agencies using it then? Like what does that look like? Do they have a department? Do they have, is there a specific time commitment that they have where maybe other agencies aren't, that are failing with it?
Yeah, I mean, the agencies or customers in general that use these platforms and fall backwards into using it like a glorified email tool, that's sort of underutilization, right? And that's where it's not being used to its fullest extent. And we've got a big project, actually. You don't know this. We didn't talk about this in advance, but we've got a big project underway right now that I'm super excited about. We call it in-app engagement. And what we're going to do is when you first spin up an instance of SharpSpring, we ask you a finite number of questions. Is this a B2B business or B2C, or is it like professional service, like a doctor's office or something like that? And do you use a shopping cart, or do you use a sales team and to generate leads? And we ask you a little bit about, lead generation and revenues and size of transaction, and whether you can resell more products to the same customer, or if it's kind of one and done. Finite number of questions, and then we spit out a very specific menu of step-by-step. First, we tell you, hey, we think we can do this for you. And that's based on what other people are saying about, the lift in conversion rate by using drip campaigns and marketing automation. And so we actually sort of try to estimate, hey, this is the kind of impact we think we can have for you in terms of dollars and sales. And then having given you that, and we may be right or we may be wrong about that number, but it gives you an idea. Then we tell you exactly how to get there. And not so much the how-to stuff everybody's got covered, right? You've got FAQs, you've got help desk articles, you got all kinds of tutorials and things, but really the why and the when. If you think about somebody who signs up for our platform, they get in and what do I do first? I've got I've got analytics, I've got social media marketing, I've got forms and landing pages, and I've got CRM and setting that up. I've got lead scoring, I've got personas, I've got this chat bot. I mean, like, where do I even begin? What do I do first? And how deep do I go? Do I set up, progressive profiling on my forms right away? And, the answer is no.
Right.
Put that off for later. There's so much. And so we've got a big project underway that we're excited about. And
is it, not to cut you off, but is it more on how to better use the tool rather than like a marketing playbook?
Yeah. It's the why and the strategy. And there's plenty of how in there as well, but we've always had the how covered, but it's really the strategy. And that's why we're asking those questions right up front, where we are, that's why we're asking the questions right up front, where we're really tying the recommendations to that particular business. And so we're excited about that. And that's going to be coming out here in another, I'm going to guess 90 days. It's a big development project, but it's actually a really big product marketing. We're doing all kinds of videos and things to sort of walk people through and give them the map on how to, progress and do things with the platform.
I agree. I think it's a smart idea. Good.
Yeah, it's sort of an expert system.
It sounds like you're adding marketing automation into the marketing automation platform.
It's a little meta. It's a little layered there. Yeah, there's some onion involved in that for sure. Awesome. But it is a personalized recommendation and tool and expert system for your business. To give you a dumb example, if you tell me you're using a shopping cart, we're not going to have you set up lead scoring, because those, that's a tool for salespeople to understand which leads to work, right? Mm-hmm. It's just not as important. People who shop through a shopping cart come and they buy pretty much right away. You obviously set up shopping cart abandonment, which we have as well. So we give you sort of the custom menu and the order in which to do things. I'm very, very excited about it, because I just believe in our product. We've used SharpSpring to build our own business, and a lot of the things we built into the platform, sometimes they've gotten a priority because we needed it ourselves. That's sort of in the past, but we really do, the expression is eat your own dog food, or eat your own caviar, or whatever it is. We're eating our own. We're working on SharpSpring every day for our own purposes.
Got to have an appetite for it, though.
Yeah.
So with what we run into a lot of accounts where, whether they're on HubSpot or Pardot, Marketo, any of these other tools, where is either the client purchased this software and they weren't working with it, or another agency onboarded them and decided like, we're not going to use it. So I think what you're saying, it would be substantially beneficial if it increases the adoption rate and the understanding from a client perspective. Because some people are like, look, I'm just in a contract. I don't care what you guys use, right?
Yeah.
But I have another year or whatnot, or 2 years or 3 years that I have to use this. So if the clients were more educated on that, they could lean on the agencies, for essentially, all right, this is our recommendation. These are the pieces that we're going to use in this tool, and more on the strategy and creativity side, rather than being saddled as a technician trying to get somebody to adopt something. I just see that as a failing course of action.
Yeah, I think that's right. The tools are just the tools. And if your tool is defining your strategy, that's a problem.
Right.
Your strategy needs to be, take the lead there, and then you need to select the right tool, to fit your strategy. And here I'm talking about the vendor that you select and the platform that you select, but I'm also talking about the features within that platform, right? So it's really got to be about strategy first. What am I trying to do? Do I believe in segmentation? Do I believe in lead nurturing? Do I believe in turning my website into a two-way communication tool and making sure my salespeople and marketers are sort of informed about what's going on and is that valuable to my business. If I'm a doctor's office or an accountant or something, do I want to make sure that I get my no-show rate down and I can get people to show up to appointments and things. Whatever the strategies are to grow the business has to come first, and then you pick the right tools and features and implement them. But you're in trouble if you're doing the opposite.
I would agree. And then speaking of the agency in the strategy, do you have any intel on average retainer values that agencies are charging when they're working on strategies with your service?
I wish I did, and we have had agency partners. Actually, I don't know if you've done something like this in the past, but we've had agency partners come on and talk about it and talk about what they do.
We did one. I can't remember what it was, but yeah, or one or two of them, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah, we've got an agency roundtable, and we're starting to foster some communication between agencies so they can talk about these things. But from our perspective, we stay out of the agency-client relationship. We want to be a tool for the agency and or their client, and so we don't have insight into it, almost because we don't think it's our business. That doesn't help for the question. I wish I had the knowledge so I could pass it on, but
yeah, no worries.
But we don't have it.
I just know some of your competitors have sold a line that they're going to help agencies sell better, and I think some agencies adopt that well, whereas some of the others don't, because it doesn't necessarily conform to the way that they sell, and they use that as a carrot to some respects on, hey, you could increase your retainer by X.
Well, now we talk about that for sure. That's a different ball game. It is a fact that the things that we do, like lead nurturing, is probably the best example. Look, if you've got a product or service that you're selling that has sort of an 8-week sales cycle, you want to stay constantly in communication with those leads, right? And you're doing that using typically using one or more workflows to stay top of mind with that lead and provide them relevant information as they're making their purchase decision. Well, that's a lot of content that typically an agency, and a lot of strategy around what that workflow should be and how it should play out, and then all that content's got to be created. So it's true that these marketing automation tools used properly, a lot of people like to think that they're actually under the misguided assumption that automation means less work. No, it actually means more work, which it doesn't sound like a great sales pitch, but it means more work, but that work leads to a lot more sales, right? And more revenue and more conversions. And the more work is in the strategy and building out these nurture campaigns and setting up these workflows and putting chatbots and things on your website to convert every possible lead. That's all leads to higher retainers for agencies. And your agency clients are typically happy to pay it if you're using the tool properly, because you can show the results. You can use the analytics, show how many more leads you're generating, how many of those are turning into SQLs or new opportunities, and ultimately how many are turning into sales. And that's all anybody's after, right? They want accountability, especially in times like the ones we're going through, right? Now is not the time to talk to your client about branding, generally speaking, unless they're trying to take advantage of a place where nobody's advertising. It's so everything I'm saying is generalization. But now is the time when money is tight and leads and sales are harder to come by, that if you come in and you can deliver results, then you're in a better place with your client, and your client's obviously in a better place as well.
So a lot of people have been saying for years, of course, email's dying. You have tools like Slack and all these other things that are trying to to
Can we
pull.
lose you on my side?
What's that?
Oh, I got a little bit of, you're back now, but the internet blinked.
Oh,
So,
sorry about that.
so you said
Um,
emails.
it was some people are making the claim email's dying, and they're trying to kill it with tools like Slack and everything else.
Yeah.
Do you see an issue with that based on running a company that's primarily on email? Do you have plans to go into a text message marketing to take advantage of that? Can you tell me what that world looks like?
Yeah, that was a multi-part question. First, our email in March, because of the virus, was up 46 or 48%. Tools like Slack serve an entirely different purpose. They're in just the same way, Slack is an evolution of sort of instant messaging, and we've been living with AIM and that since the 90s, right? And so there are other communication channels, but those channels tend to be very and instant messaging and text. I sort of lump all those sort of together. I think Slack serves a different purpose, but the thing that makes them different from email is this. Funny, we talked about zero inbox and all, and it is the place where you send something that you really need people to read and understand, and that they can't miss. And when you're in a feed with 20 or 30 people, we talk about it internally. I get some people in my organization that'll think they announce something if they announce it in a Slack channel. If I don't check that Slack channel and there's 20 or 30 messages since then, I've missed it. If it's in my inbox, it's in my inbox. And so it's a lot less transient than some of these other methodologies. So now, all that said, we've been doing Slack integrations. We just launched our chat bot. It's got live chat functionality as well, and that's done through chat. That's done through Slack. We've got another neat Slack integration that's coming up where we're, we can notify somebody. Right now, I can notify a salesperson, notify Dave when somebody's back on their website. Hey, that lead you were working that you thought was, never going to be back is back on the website right now. I can text message you that. I can send you an email. We're going to be able to put those in a Slack channel as well, and do some different things. But no, I think email is continues to be here to stay. It's evolved. You've got to be smart. You can't go spamming people, but it is still the number one way to get in touch with people and make sure that they've received, your message. I was thinking, this is maybe, forgive me for riffing here, but
No, go for it. I love it.
About all these restaurants that we've got locally, and they were all putting their specials up on their Facebook pages, but that sort of requires you to think about them and go to their Facebook page. But if that restaurant had your email address and could remind you about them, just as though you were, and none of us are driving by those restaurants anymore. So I'm sitting here like bored of eating whatever. I won't tell you what I'm eating over here. I have a hard time thinking about these restaurants I used to go to, and they're not top of mind. The inbox allows that to happen, right? If those restaurants can send me, hey, remember us, today's our special, we're here, we're still open for takeout, or we'll deliver, but I can proactively send you a message. And so I think these other channels serve different purposes, and they're super powerful, and glad to have them, but I'm not at all concerned about email as being a relevant choice as well. We have looked at text messaging in the past. I think people, there's a lot of regulation around that. I think people don't want it to they don't want to be text. There you're talking to your family, and you look down, and you gotta, it's good for some things, maybe reminding you about that dentist appointment that you've got in an hour, or, the next day. But I don't think anybody wants it to be the place where you're constantly, being yanked back to your phone. At least I have to go and open my email client or look at it on my phone purposefully, and it's not bugging the hell out of me. And I don't know that text for marketing purposes, generally speaking, is a there's spots for it for sure, but I don't know that it presents the best opportunity for folks.
I can't tell you the number of people, if I can't get a hold of them on an email, I'm a marketer and I'm a salesperson, right? I'm going to text them, and just those two things being linked, or call them, any number of ways that I can get a hold of somebody. Me personally, I want available through a tool, and I know there isn't necessarily one that has that. And that's what I'm looking for, even if it's on that micro scale. And I'm not trying to pitch you to create that. I'm just saying, from a user standpoint, in a sales scenario, closing a chasm between marketing and sales, if any potential way that somebody's going to connect with that customer, I think that should be recorded in some way or somehow, because there's not really a tool that I can pull those into that I know of, right?
I think that's a good point. Like, if you could, I guess what I was thinking about is mass texting, text 2,000 people at the same time. Hey.
Yeah, whatever. I think that's pretty cheesy. Like, we got a donut special over here at Donnie's Donuts. Yeah.
A bunch of, that is a nice accent there. Bunch of regulations that prevent that. And I also just think it's bad form. But, if you're talking about a salesperson and being able to text somebody conveniently, that makes a lot of sense to me. Because, there might be, they know who you are, and as long as you've figured out that you've got that kind of relationship where they're not going to find that, bothersome, and it's a one-on-one thing, that makes a whole lot of sense. I think that's a different use case. So I'll take a note on that one.
So with SharpSpring, what do you think your biggest failure has been so far?
Biggest failure? Jeez, John. Man.
Other than jumping on this podcast, man.
Yeah, right. It's up there. It's up on the list. I don't want to say biggest. I don't mean to sound like this, but we've been super, super lucky, and we sort of built a product and have come out of the gates. We never really pivoted. We worked on, and there's been a million mistakes. I don't mean to say that. We've had a windy road. I've developed features that I thought were awesome, and like our customers are like, "What the hell's that?" and didn't adopt them. Like, we had a really novel call tracking technology as an example. But just to finish that sentence, so we've had a million mistakes. I'm not saying we haven't had a million mistakes. It's just that nothing jumps out at me as like, oh, that was a nightmare. That one thing was a huge mistake. I wish I could do again.
Nothing like the keeping you up at night bagging groceries scenario.
Yeah, nothing. Oh, I've had plenty of sleepless nights now, but they're all not on one topic, many different topics. But we've had some product missteps. Developing features that just people didn't get, and so that always stinks. You spend months developing something, and it's like, this isn't quite fitting. But everybody who's built a software business knows how that feels, whether it's they didn't get the whole damn product and your business is out of business, or they didn't get this feature or that feature didn't work out. So we're public, and the way we became a public company, sort of, you described it earlier. My founder, my partner, and I sold our business, and then to a small public company, and then I ended up running that company, selling the company we sold SharpSpring to, and then renaming the company SharpSpring. So the company that's here today is the company I started, but we ended up becoming public through that process. And public company stuff is a big headache and a big burden, and for a long time we weren't big enough to be public, and now we're sort of just growing into those shoes. So I'd put that in. I don't know that I put any of this stuff in a mistake. It's like getting fired. helped you become who you are today, right? So that's how I feel about some of our mistakes.
Right.
That makes any sense. So sorry for the unsatisfying answer.
All right. So where do you think either agencies or companies are failing with their marketing today?
Well, agencies, it's easy. Agencies are horrific about doing their own marketing. Even right now, I bet when there's agencies who are like, there's not much product, client work coming in for some of them right now. I can almost feel that they're not working on their own marketing. And I recognize that agencies, especially smaller agencies, there's a lot of work that's done, sort of word of mouth. But messaging is still very important, and pricing and positioning and all the things that make us marketers. Agencies are the very last to do that work for themselves. And it's what is it? The cobbler's
kids,
kid,
no shoes. Yeah,
doesn't have shoes, right? So it's that scenario, and I think that's pretty pretty straightforward from my perspective, that agencies fall into that trap. Always, putting the customers first, which is good, but you got to find time to grow your own business and practice what you preach. With customers, I think regular businesses, I think we touched on it, that these things they take a little bit of time for you to understand what there is to do, but you can do things today that only Amazon could do just a couple of years ago for a few $100s a month. You can transform the efficiency of everything that you're doing from a sales and marketing perspective. I mean, this is a shameless pitch, I don't mean to be this way, but if you're not using marketing automation, you're just wasting money. You're not, your website is a one-way billboard that's giving you no information about, your leads and anonymous and known leads and their behavior and what they're doing, and letting you know the example I gave earlier. Hey, Bob's on your site right now. You guys were just about to give up on him, but there he is. He's tooling around. Time to give Bob a call. Just small examples of, you're not nurturing every lead, especially at times like this when leads are so hard to come by and you got to turn every one of them into a sale. So, for me, it's using the tools that are available today, which is hard. Everybody, I talked about me using my inbox and zero inbox. Maybe I'm guilty of it in a different area. Maybe I should be taking more advantage of some of these newer tools, Slack and the rest. I use Slack. Don't give me that judging look. That's what I would say. I'd say taking advantage of the tools and recognizing what they can do for your business.
Okay. Now, this is your space. If you want to plug or peddle anything, it's entirely up to you.
I feel like I've accidentally done it. I don't want to be that guy. And so, obviously,
done a hell of a job. I'll tell you that, Rick.
Right. Anybody who wants to, go to sharpspring.com. We'd love to get you a demo of the platform. It's about driving leads and sales and revenue into your business. And if you're an agency, we're built for agencies. Jon knows this, been a partner for years. We'd love to talk to you, but that's the extent of my pitch.
All right, right on, man. And how can anybody get a hold of you?
Yeah, SharpSpring.com. We're there. We're ready to go. I've got LinkedIn. I post fairly regularly on LinkedIn profile. We've got like 10,000 people on there at this point. Know them all really, really well. Personal, and then send them all Christmas cards. It's a good way to connect as well, and we'll be posting. But we do our blogging and things through our website. So I'm not a Twitter guy. that's one of those things I've just sort of stayed away from. I know it's sort of sacrilege.
No, it's cool. It's fell out of style. So you're like a Gen Zer now. So you got a TikTok account?
I'm back. I'm back in style, right? I just let the wave go past me. So.
All right, Rick. Thank you so much for joining us, man. Really appreciate it. I know you're a really busy guy.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity. It's good seeing you, and good seeing you as well, Dave. I wish you guys the best, and I think the way we all sign off now is to take care and stay healthy. Okay.
Oh, that's right, man. Yeah, stay healthy. Wash your hands. Yeah, don't touch others too closely that you don't know. We could just keep going.
I would just throw in brush your teeth. Why the hell not? Right? I mean, we should all be brushing our teeth a little more. Can we?
Yeah, let's talk about all hygiene. Yeah,
that's right. All right, guys.
All right, thanks, Rick. Take care, man.
Take care. Bye bye.
All right, Dave. How do you think that went?
Oh, I thought it was great. Like I said at the beginning, we use SharpSpring. I love the product. Our team enjoys using it. So, I mean, to hear it straight from him, I thought it was great. And I didn't get to chime in, but I absolutely hate when companies text message me anything.
I could feel it. I could feel that from you. That's why I think he could feel it too. But I had to get my point across. It's whether it's hated or not, if it's valuable and it works.
So
everybody hates to be sold, though, right?
Like what you described is Jon the person reaching out to a lead, which I would interpret that completely different than coming from some short code that was offering me a click here for a special deal on a chicken sandwich.
Right, but if marketing is done properly, it should always look like it's coming just from Jon, where it's a personal approach, right?
Sure.
Where instead you don't have that short code, where it would say like, "Hey Dave, just wanted to send this over to you. I got a quick discount code for you. Feel free to use it."
But from a technical perspective, the short code is the more professional way to make sure that if you fake a long code, then a lot of carriers will block that. So if you're a company wanting to send text messages to you, plus you have to double opt in. I mean, a lot of people just won't go through the double opt-in process if you're trying to subscribe to, a marketing style message, where if you just picked up your cell phone and then text messaged a number, it's going right through. There's no opt into that. Mm-hmm. So that direct communication from you to me is a more natural, but it just doesn't work like that, because I think, the carriers and such did not want the spam that email suffers from. So that's, it's a different world. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think because of the number of ways that somebody's being communicated with, you need to make sure that you're hitting as many of those as you possibly can if you want to stay in touch with them, especially when it comes to the sales side of things. I truly believe it should be a form of marketing. And I said stop. Anytime somebody hits that with me, I hit stop. What I don't like is spam emails. I get so many emails that I never signed up for.
Trust me.
Never, ever signed up for these emails, and they're sending them to me. We've never done that in my entire career. I've never believed in it.
But start clicking, go unsubscribing. Like that little bit of effort
I do.
Goes a long way.
I do. And of course, the brilliance of the ones that have the 8 different categories. And I spoke with some email marketing experts about this. Like, oh, well, which one do you want to unsubscribe for? How about all of them? Right.
Yeah.
Or they'll do the reverse psychology one where it's, oh, you think you're unsubscribing, but you're technically resubscribing.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah. And I don't want to spam people. I don't want to get somebody in trouble, but it's getting to that point where you're having to use G Suite's feature. It's all right, cool. I'm a spam and I'm unsubscribe.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, marketing automation is definitely powerful. I mean, from a technology perspective, it's, you don't need a platform to do all these things, but it sure makes it a hell of a lot easier. I mean, you could, the tools, when I got the full demo of the full suite of SharpSpring, I mean, it's pretty impressive of the depth of tools and just the things you can do nowadays in these platforms. And it's funny when he was talking about, so back in the day, I created a product idea that I wanted to, and never got around to building it, but it was going to be called Site Gravy, because it was a bunch of tools around the website, but not the thing itself, not the entree, right? So I always thought the thing that we're building is the gravy on top. When he was talking about
That's
it,
a great name. I like the name.
You should, describe it as we're the gravy.
Yeah, I guess who doesn't like gravy?
I mean, it turns chicken into a special meal. It goes from Tuesday night to Saturday night.
Right. Is this a holiday? It's got gravy on it.
Yeah.
And I like that. Now, they've built a lot of tools. So many tools, like he mentions the dashboard and some of those other things where there's a communication channel between whether it's our team, their team, teams in general, to just stay up to date based on what's going on. But it's such a hard thing to do because you're already doing all of these other activities for your client, maximizing your time to the fullest and their time. Right. And then now you're having to take these new updates and features where you're needing to communicate those into a marketing plan that you're already executing on. The difficulties are there is all I'm stating.
And not to mention that your end client, it's not immediately visible to them the effort you put in, right? So there has to be some, level of trust where you're like, yeah, we spent 5 hours on setting up, these processes, workflows, dashboards that they don't necessarily get to see right off the bat. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the other thing too. You have the behind the curtain scenario where clients can't see all this setup. In fact, I know speaking with one of the account managers earlier this morning, we have a demo that's this week, and all the work that he's having to put into place just so he can walk somebody through it, make sure all their questions are answered and tailored directly to their type of business, because they're a little bit different. They're a B2C, but they also have a long sales process. It's just, all right, how do you make sure that you hit the expectations and state the value?
All right.
But no, I thought Rick was fantastic. He was open. He's always a lot of fun. And I'm happy to see a lot of their successes. Getting calls, the PPL loan. There's other things I have to now change for that other business.
You applied for the PPL for that?
Yeah.
Did you get it?
No.
I haven't heard anything yet either, which is, I've kind of just given up on it, but
at 10:30 a.m. today, they released the funds, right?
Right, but I haven't received any extra, I would assume since I applied at the original date that I'd probably be included in this next group. And so far I haven't heard anything. And then from what I'm hearing is the SBA has already announced that all the money that in the second round has already been accounted for. So
how in the fuck is that possible?
Because there's 3 million small businesses in the U.S. I mean, the math just isn't there. If every single small business applies for this, I mean, there's not enough money.
But it's based on their payroll.
Correct.
Up to a cap.
Right. 10 million.
So
right. They should have come up with some formula that valued it on like a per employee basis.
Right.
And funded the ones that help the most employees instead of, and it does cap at $100,000 salary too.
Right. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. There's caps. Right. So who did the math though?
The professional services company that, that has a lot more $70,000 to $90,000 people are getting a lot more money than the mom and pop restaurants. And they should have flipped it and picked the mom and pop restaurants first before the professional services companies. But the professional service companies support the economy better than a bunch of minimum wage jobs. It's tough. I mean, it just, there's a restaurant chain here. Maybe you have one in Tampa, but I know there's one in Orlando called Graffiti Junction.
No.
And it's a burger restaurant. Well, they just announced they're closing. There's like 5 to 10 locations and
forever. They're done.
Yep. Just closing up shop.
That sucks.
Yeah. And I think we're going to hear more of that. I think we're going to run into more of that.
Yeah. I hate to see any business close under these circumstances. And there may have been something that happened before, like we've talked about people making big gambles in December and January that were supposed to pay off.
Right.
Like I said, I went to an event in New Orleans in February where there was an economist talking about the chances of a next recession. And he's like, oh, based on historic, there's almost no chance. Like goes on. I'm like, oh, that's good. Cause I've had this fear since 2018 of something happening. And then we have this less than, I want to say 30 days later. So I think a lot of people, let's say somebody took that advice and they went ahead and made that big play right after that. Here's an economist that said this.
Right.
You'd be fucked.
You would be, yeah.
You're screwed. And what are you going to just blame the guy that was on stage?
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's the real fear. I mean, and that's why you got to play defensive all the time. Cause you have got, I mean, I guess there's no big reward without big risk. And sometimes you have to take that leap, but I'm always thinking like that. I got, my employees are relying on me not to fuck this company up.
Mm-hmm.
There's families and there's, I mean, if we added up the number of people that just depend on you and I to not screw this business up, to have enough money in the bank account to, deal with losing a client and shit like that. There's a lot of defensive measures that I do to ensure that we're resilient. And there's a lot of people there's a lot of people treating their businesses like recreational piggy banks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like it's a video game and they got infinite lives.
Right.
Like now things like this can just really derail it. Sad to hear about that burger joint. Yeah. There's going to be more. And I think there should be, there's going to be more, but I'm also interested to see the fraud that has taken place here that we haven't seen yet. So I imagine a year, maybe 2 years from now, there's going to be all these huge investigations, all of these companies figuring out a way, especially with the banks.
Oh, do you see all the businesses getting like pressured into giving the money back? Like
Shake
Harvard.
Shack?
How about Harvard? Who has a $41 billion endowment, took money from the Paycheck Protection.
Dude, that's just disgusting, man. That is. This is the worst part of capitalism shown right here. Because technically what we're doing isn't capitalism. We're giving a bunch of businesses free money. So as capitalists, they're like, okay, well, we're just going to go ahead and take this. So we're
I'm a capitalist as big as they come. But when the government tells you can't operate, then it is their fault, and they do need to make these businesses whole. I would have just been fine with the government saying, hey, everybody, use precaution when you're shopping at these businesses, but I'm not going to force anyone to close. And it should be a little bit of personal responsibility. Like what is wrong with people being a little bit responsible for their own health and protection?
Because we live in a nanny state, and that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And we're going to look to sue whoever put us in any type of harm's way, and that's just the world that we live in.
Old women on Facebook screaming about, you're going to endanger me because you're going out to the beach. And I'm like, you need to self-quarantine yourself. And if you're expecting you to be okay, if you want to go out of your house and be okay, then that's not my responsibility. That's on you. And I feel like, especially in South Florida, there is just a ton of people bitching about the young people, making them get exposed. And I'm like, that's just ridiculous.
Divides on all sides, ageism, politics, economic philosophies.
And I wish they would just take the identity politics out of it and just say the lower class is getting hit by COVID worse, because that's really the answer. It's not a racial thing, but there's that is true. But there are also, the lower class is getting hit harder because they have the most jobs that are, least insulated. They are the grocery, working in the grocery store, the stock, the factories, they're exposed.
I was at Publix yesterday, and my wife said, "You could go shop with me." I don't enjoy grocery shopping more than like once a month. You love it?
Love it.
Do you? Good.
I can roam around a grocery store thinking of shit to cook. I love to cook though. So.
That's right. Okay, that's cool. I don't really love to cook. So I go, right? And I go about once a month. And the thing that I like to do the most is I like product packaging. So I go through, I'll see like, all right, how do things change? It's the marketer in me, like, all right, that's cool. But we were there. Everybody has a mask on. I'm not wearing a mask for a couple reasons. One, I don't like anything touching my face, and two, I don't want to smell my breath longer than I have to.
Right.
And everybody has a mask on, so you have this energy and this vibe that is not.
You're the outcast.
Kosher. Not even so much that. There was other people that didn't have masks on, but it's just a very negative weighted vibe. And we get up to the counter, and there's plexiglass that's right there.
Right.
And the bagger comes up, and he says, "You two need to take a step back for my safety."
Oh my God.
I wanted to say, "Go fuck yourself. I'll bag my own groceries." But I'm there, I was like, all right, that's cool. And I understand, but
that guy.
Yeah. And I was just instantly like, this is the world that we now live in. And it's just so sad, man. I understand people are dying, but at the end of the day, if we need to take these types of precautions that are necessary, then something's got to change, I guess is what I'm getting at.
All these numbers look pretty much overinflated. And I think next time we have a real severe pandemic, it's going to be so bad because people are not going to shelter. We're not going to close up businesses. I mean, I think it's going to be a lot of resistance next time. It's just like the hurricane situation in Florida. Like when we get a hurricane that the media talks about being so nasty and bad and everybody evacuates, and then it turns out to do nothing. And then the next hurricane that shows up 3 weeks later, we're like, nah, fuck it. We're riding it out.
Decimates people. I agree. But I think everybody is going to be quick to throw up their, like, we need to lock down when there's a bad cold season or a bad flu season. People are going to throw this flag up. And this is going to sound cold. I believe in Darwinism. There's a lot of people on this planet. We have a lot of technology that is helping people live longer. And there's a culling that happens. It's a natural part of existence.
Sure.
So something like this, I'm not helping spread it around by any means. I'm quarantining and I'm taking the activities necessary. What's that?
Are you quarantining?
Well, I'm in my office, with nobody else. So I'm not forcing other people to be around me.
Right.
But I think this is a natural thing in the world, right? That happens, whether it's dinosaurs going extinct, and I'm not saying humans are going to go extinct, but this is a natural thing where we need to build up our antibodies. Because the flip side of this is, if nobody touches each other, everybody's immune systems are going to weaken anyway. The long term of this is, where a virus comes in, it's going to kill people even that much faster.
But true, but the viruses are evolving too. I mean, it's not like that we're going to get to a point where we're not going to get sick anymore.
No, that's what I'm saying. It's the flip side of that. If we don't interact with each other on a level to pass germs and bacteria to each other, we weaken our immune systems.
Right.
Therefore, a virus comes in, it's going to be even
just
more
like
vicious.
the Mayans, the Spanish brought
smallpox
disease and basically wiped them out.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So speaking of these good conversations, when are we? I think we got to do a quarterly recap show. It's just us, no interview.
All right, because I'm thinking about editing most of this out.
I think this has been some of the better conversation. I mean, I think everyone's tired of talking about coronavirus now, but
so sick of hearing
see my garden though. It is. I'm very proud of my garden.
Are you? You should take pictures of your garden. Are you sharing those on social media? That's the thing. I've been so distant on social media because I'm just so sick of hearing about nurses that are heroes and their face masks that it looks like they wore them too damn tight. And I'm just, man, I'm like over it. I'm just, all right. If it's coming for me, let it come for me.
I'm not washing my hands a super extra amount anymore. I'm back to like my normal amount of hand washing. That's how.
Are you really? You're rebelling, huh?
I'm not rebelling. I just know that I know that's why, or how I'm reacting to the situation is that I'm like, all right, if it's going to get me, it's going to get me. Like I'm not ready to change our entire world and life for this.
I have a friend that has a camper in front of his house because he still has to go to work for his job, and his wife won't let him in the house.
What?
Dead serious.
Wow.
Yeah. Should have him on the show as a guest.
Yeah.
I was just like, wow. Okay. No.
Yeah. That's a little crazy.
But I think it's just how people react to certain situations. I know another guy, he's got like a 45-minute to an hour routine that he has to go through when he gets home because otherwise his family doesn't feel safe.
So we wipe down shit that we get from a grocery store because I'm envisioning random strangers picking up that bottle of mayonnaise 45 times before I purchased it. So we give it a wipe down with a little disinfectant wipe, but other than
I
that,
guess I'm not even doing that either. Yeah, my wife, she's wearing the mask and stuff like that, but we'll see.
I have worn it once, and I've not worn it once going to a grocery store, and both times I felt weird because when I did wear it, everyone was like, "Oh, does he have it?" And then when I didn't wear it, it was like, "Oh, this is the asshole that's spreading it." I just felt like I was screwed no matter what.
Yeah, I agree. I think I'm going with I probably look like the asshole that has the bravado that thinks like he can't get it. I don't look like I'm a carrier. What's that?
Untouchable. Unbreakable.
Untouchable. Yeah, like a 20-year-old on a dirt bike running through red lights.
Right.
I'll live forever.
Yep.
Yeah. No, I really don't. I think I would. There's a huge proportion of this of people that are taking it on well. And if you look at a lot of the stuff, the people that are dying from this, in most part, are either A, overweight, B, have a heart condition of some sort, or diabetes. Right? Those are all things that are really, really hard on your heart. So your heart and your lungs are, absolutely stressed, right? Especially with something that's respiratory. And I think at the end of the day, a lot of other people are saying this as well. Anybody that has those conditions should quarantine themselves, and anybody that's not on that side, those are the people that should be getting the test, and those are the people that should be going back into the work, back into the economy as soon as possible.
Right, 100%.
All right, I don't know. We brought COVID in this. I actually had it as a goal to not have that, to see if we could do that today. Obviously, we can. It's part of our culture.
It is. I mean, I've really enjoyed this working at home stuff. It's really going to change the fabric of what we do. I mean, I've enjoyed working from home, but yeah, it's interesting. It'll be really interesting to see what next year looks like.
So I was on a call last week on Friday, in fact, and one of the guys that's on there sells high-end office furniture, right? And I said, "Hey, your business is probably up. Everybody's working from home." He said, "No." He said, "Nobody wants to pay for the stuff that we offer for their homes." He said, "It's businesses that are willing to pay for that ergonomic technology for their, employees that are in the offices."
Those chairs, what are they called? Herman Miller chairs?
Herman Miller. I got a Herman Miller. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fucking expensive.
Yeah, I bought mine used. I got mine for $300. It's a $1,500 chair.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah.
But if I was an office furniture company, I'd have been pivoting to bringing on home office brands so that I could stay in business. I mean, if you don't know how to pivot in business during a crisis, you don't deserve to be in business.
Kind of like if you have a weak immune system and you don't know how to quarantine, you don't deserve to live. Is that what you're saying, Dave?
It's very Darwinism. It is.
It's logic. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. They were something I earned early on. There for a reason means something.
Right. But I think my wife was just saying to me that it takes 21 days to create a habit of, if you do something.
It's a saying. There's studies that say whether that's true or not on both sides. But yes, that's an old saying. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're basically, everyone in the country right now is establishing new habits. That's why I'm interested to see how this really impacts society over the long haul, because it's going to be hard for everybody to just flip a switch and go back to the way it was. Like here in Florida, I mean, schools canceled for the rest of the year. So employees with kids, like it's really, daycares they're going to be created. Like there's so many changes. I don't know. We'll see. And if it comes back in the fall, Jesus Christ.
Well, football, yeah. It's going to be rough. I think when you were talking about your grandfather's victory garden a few shows back, right? That lasted for so long. I don't know. Maybe a generation, right? So some of those changes in here, I don't think we've had them that long. Your grandfather had his garden for probably 2 years, maybe 3 years. I don't know.
All the way until it died.
No. Before the war was over. Like before it was like,
hey, he was in the war. So no, he planted it after the war.
Oh, it was after the war? Okay. Yeah. All right. So obviously I don't know the timeline or history for shit. So but what I'm saying is like, okay, well, those things were set into place, and then moving forward now, I think we will have a lot of those things, right? So there's people now that they're never going to touch another human again. Right? They're going to do whatever they can. Yeah.
That's a trusting moment right there when you actually like reach in and you're like, uh-oh, do I really want to touch this guy's hand?
Yeah, seriously. So you're going to have things like that. Also, the argument to work from home, we've talked about that before. It's going to be hard pressed to say that, oh, you need to bring an employee into the office unless there's a track record of not. And all the little nuanced things that we're not even thinking about. Like there's I think some positive things, right? Where there's families that are taking daily walks, where they now have something to refer back to. Like, hey, when there was a damn virus affecting the whole planet, we went on a daily walk, and now we're not doing that.
So our neighborhood is crazy active right now. Oh, it looks like you locked up.
No, I didn't.
Okay.
Yeah.
But just like Jason in New York City, I mean, the people living in an apartment complex right now must be fucking miserable. Like, I couldn't imagine not having outdoor space to escape to during
they
this.
can walk on the city streets.
Yeah, I know, but still, you have to like Rick said, you have to go up and down an elevator that 500 people use daily. I mean, it would be pretty it would be nerve-wracking to live in a
why aren't the jackass guys doing that stunt right now, like licking the buttons on an elevator in like in a hospital or something?
Hopefully they filmed that 3 years ago and it's just now appropriate. That would be crazy. Awesome.
All right, we got anything else?
That's it.
All right, my friend. Always a pleasure to see you. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey.
Yeah, thank you.